Now we're starting. So tonight we're doing Burp, which we'll talk about later. But first, let's have a little review of web. So when you go to a web page, right, you click on things, or you type things in, and then you press OK. And that sends a request to the server. And so it processes whatever you want. Like, you're like, oh, OK, I want to see this picture of Patrick burping. It's like, OK, I'll find that. And then it'll send the HTML of the page back to you. It'll send you back what you are looking for. So just a review. So just know that you're sending something. You send them what you want, and it sends something back. So what Burp does is that it acts as the in-between between you and the server. So whenever you send a request, or let's say you send, I don't know, you say you want a picture of Patrick, right? Burp can change that and say, OK, I want a picture of SpongeBob. And even though you clicked, I want a picture of Patrick, you can change it to get you a picture of SpongeBob. On a page that we're going to look at later, right, there are GET and POST requests. The difference is that GET requests show up in the URL, POST requests do not. And POST requests you cannot edit, because for GET requests, you can just go up to the URL and edit it, whereas for POST, you can't. But that's why you use Burp. So for the web page that we're going to look at, hopefully it's not too blurry on your screen, there's PHP and HTML. I will explain that part to you. So for the PHP part, right, it says if this person is not logged in, then give them the username SpongeBob. And then it puts a whole bunch of HTML on the page, and it says if this user is not Patrick, then say you are not Patrick, you can't see the secret box, nice try SpongeBob. And it also says there's no login screen either. But notice that there's another if, and it says if that the variable, haha, you can't log in, is not set, set it. And it submits a POST request. You can see that, where's the mouse? Where is, yes, the method is POST. So it's a failed login, so you send a POST request saying, haha, you can't log in, and the value is Manny's an instrument. And then you submit that request. But what you really want to do is that you want to log in as Patrick. So if we just go to the page. Right. So when you first load the page, it says, oh, it's a secret box. Welcome, SpongeBob. You don't want to be SpongeBob. You're not Patrick. You don't have permission to see the contents of the secret box. And there's no login screen. There's nothing you can do about it. And so how do you access the secret box? Patrick is doing it. He's Burp. Yes. So to use Burp, you have to set it up first a bit. But once you have it set up, whoa, why isn't it? Give me a moment. So this is Burp. Oh, it's coming in slowly. OK, so this is Burp. So you want to use Burp proxy. Burp can be used for other things, but tonight we're just going to talk about the proxy. And what we want to do is that we want to turn on the interception. We want to be between whatever request we send and the server, so we can edit the requests. So now intercept is on. Oh, this is going to be messy. So if we reload the page, right, it's loading, but it doesn't finish loading because we have intercepted the request, and we are able to look at it and say whether we want that to keep on going to the server or if we want it to drop, as in just never go to the server. So you notice that right now, it's just a GET request, and it's just going to the website. So you say, yeah, I want to go to that website. But you notice another request, and it's a POST request. And like we saw before in the source code, it says, haha, you can't log in, is Manny's an instrument. But remember that we wanted to have the username Patrick. So what we do is just simply go in, change the variable to user, and say that we are Patrick. So we're lying. We are unable to change this from the HTML, but using Burp, we are able to change the username. and we're lying about the username because we are not really Patrick. But if we let that go forward, and the page loads, you get this into the secret box. It's just a piece of string, welcome Patrick. And that's just a demonstration for Burp, and now we will move on to XSS.
Oh, got that?
Yes?
Okay, well, so how many of you understood that? Or any questions? Okay?
How did you first get to the first page where you saw the information of the user credentials that needed? You have to be Patrick to get it.
That,
So he's talking about the source code.
yes, so that's the source. So I wrote this website, so I know it, but otherwise, no, you would not know it.
Right, okay, so the example here is kind of like, so you are logged in as someone, right? So like, let's say on Facebook, you're logged in as, what's your name? Roman? Okay, so you're logged in as Roman, right? But you want to log in as Nolan, me, right? So instead of telling Facebook you're logging in as your username, you're changing the request to say, hey, Facebook, log me in, my username is this, right? So then instead of using your username, you are saying, okay, I'm someone else, right? And then the server registers that, and then they reply back with the other person's credentials or whatever someone else would see. Right? Does that kind of make sense? Right? And tomorrow we'll have the workshop, and then we'll show you actually how this is done. Right? Any more questions? No? All right. So starting actually. That was quick. Yes. Okay. All right. So cross-site stripping. I don't even have. All right. So how many of you have done HTML? Okay, so like a couple of you. All right. So have you guys ever seen this before? Right. So like when you go to like any page and you press like Control U or View Source, like you get all of this, right? What you see is HTML, right? And what that is, it's the skeleton of any web page. So all HTML pages will start with the HTML tag over here. Oh, is it set? Is it broadcasting? Broadcasting? Yeah, okay. So right here, it sets the doc type to HTML, right? So it lets the browser know that what you're seeing now is an HTML page, right? And these things in brackets are called tags, right? So all HTML pages will start with the HTML tag, and then it'll say, okay, so everything inside is going to be rendered as HTML, right? This head is just telling the page, like, here's what you see first. Here are all the relevant metadata stuff, like the title. If you've ever like seen Facebook, when you paste the link into like a chat box or something, it'll show up with like a new box with the title and images and a description of that. All of that can be set using meta tags in the header. Right. So, and we're not really going to be worrying about that. We only care about the structure of HTML today, right? So inside the body is an H1, which is just a big header, right, with text inside. So if we rendered this page, what do you think we would see? Right, any hand raises? No? Yeah?
So you're going to get like a website with page title, heading, SS, headings, and paragraphs.
Right, exactly, right? Simple stuff, right? And on the right side, this is another HTML page, and can anybody tell me what that's going to be? Someone? Yes, Rishik?
It's a heading that's smaller than H1 saying spectacular mountain and a picture.
Right, exactly, right? The IMG you see there in brackets is an image tag, right? And that tells the browser, inside this thing, you should load a picture, right? And then how do you get that picture, or how do you know what picture is going to load? You look at the source tag, and then you look at that URL, right? So if it was something on like google.com, google.com/pic_mountain.jpg would load you that image, right? And then these attributes, alt and style, are just like extra stuff that the HTML tag will have, right? So alt is just when you hover over the image, it's what that text is going to be when you hover over, right? In this case, it'll say mountain view. Styles is CSS styles, right? So who knows what CSS is? Right? Okay, so good. So CSS is just styling of HTML elements. And in this case, it would be a width of 304 pixels and a height of 228 pixels. All right, so now let's move on to JavaScript. Right? So how many of you know what JavaScript is or have used JavaScript? Okay, good. So, and JavaScript is just, if HTML is the skeleton of a web page, JavaScript is kind of like the brains of a web page. It makes your page more dynamic, and it enables kind of like manipulation and control of it. Right? So you can do things to your HTML skeleton using JavaScript. Right? And that's going to be very important when we start talking about cross-site scripting, because as we go now, cross-site scripting is client-side code injection. Right? And what that means is you are injecting JavaScript or putting JavaScript in the HTML code so that the browser will render and will show this JavaScript, and then it'll do what this JavaScript is telling you to do. Right? So who knows what an alert is in JavaScript? Okay, right, alert. Like you ever go on Facebook and you're typing something, and then you accidentally like press the X, it pops up and say, hey, do you really want to like leave this page? It says yes or no. Yeah, okay, that's an alert, right? So, so let's try to see how that works, right? So on the left of this slide is going to be kind of like pseudocode, and it's like, what would the browser render, right? So let's say I have a comment section, right? And it's rendering the latest comments of whatever, right? Like someone puts in like commenting like whatever on something. It'd be the HTML tag, there'd be a header, and then but between that is going to be the actual comment that is being fetched from like a source, right? And then on the right side is showing what someone can do to do XSS, right? So instead of putting like text, they're putting this script tag, and it'll have a JavaScript function inside, right? So in this case, it's do something evil, right? So enough talk. Let's actually start demoing it. So if you guys have your computers out, you can actually go here and follow along as I demo. And I'll also have it up here. Okay, great. Oops, okay, sorry. I'll give you guys a second to come back up. So nliang.co and then port 9817. And then let me know when you guys are done, and then we can go. Good? Alrighty. So this is a simple kind of like a chat box, right? Like you guys don't have access to input anything, but later on you will. It just shows whatever someone inputted, right? So let's say, so I put in welcome to Hack Night. Let's do something like, hi everyone, right? Super simple. Everybody sees hi everyone, and it shows the user and their message, right? So we talked about HTML, right? And what is HTML? It's just like lots of tags, and it's the skeleton of what makes up a web page. Let's see if we can try to inject that kind of stuff through a text box, right? Because what this chat is doing is I'm sending a message, and then on the client side, you guys are receiving a message, and then it's saying, okay, I received this message, and I'm going to just put it into that chat box, right? I'm going to create a new div, I'm going to create a new box, and I'm going to put that message there, right? So if you don't sanitize, which means like you don't clean, you don't like secure yourself from all these vulnerabilities, then you can have like crazy stuff happen, right? So let's try to use CSS, right? So does anybody know what a span is in HTML tags, right? So yes, what? Span, yeah, right, yeah. So it's like a text, right? Like a label, right? So if we do something like span hello, what's going to happen when I press enter? Okay, so I'm going to press enter, and it just shows hello, right? But the interesting thing is, if we inspect this element, right, we go and ask Chrome or Firefox in this case to tell us how is the browser seeing this message, right? So in this case, we have a new user message that was added when I said hello, and inside this span is just whatever I put, right? Exactly what I put, right? I put in span hello before, and I get exactly span hello back, right? So can anybody can anybody start seeing, no, okay, English, but can you guys see where I'm going with this, right? If the program is putting exactly what I type in to all of you guys, can you guys like guess what would happen if I put in something like script, or like scripts or alerts or stuff? Like you guys would show that, right? Like your browsers would render that, and then exactly that would happen. So let's add another thing. Let's go to my thing, and then we do something a little bit more exciting, right? So we have another span, and then we do some inline styling with like font weights, font sizes, and colors, and all that. What do you guys think will happen when I press enter? Yes? No? Yes? Okay, I'll press enter, and it's like, wow, right? It's red, right? Like, how did that happen? All right, so now we inspect it again, and we see, okay, so what was sent to the browser when I pressed enter? Exactly what I sent, right? So we have, actually, let me move this up. Oh, I guess you can see. But inside here is a span, right? It's the span with the style font weight bold, font size 18, and color red, right? In hex, this is red. So wow, right? Pretty cool, kind of exciting, but not really. So let's go to something a little bit cooler. Right, so remember what we said before about like image tags and stuff? Let's see if that works, right? Maybe like since now we've been just doing spans. Can we try to do different tags, right? So like now I'm going to do an image tag, right? So I have an image with the source this, right? So when I press enter, what's going to happen? Right, so an image is going to pop up, or we think an image is going to pop up. So we press enter, and there we go, right? So there's our image, right? Is that happening on your screen? Right, yeah, okay, so image, yeah, cool. So now images work, but all of this is still static, right? Like there's not really any JavaScript being injected into any of this. So let's try now with a button, right? And buttons are interesting, right? Because they have certain attributes that users can interact with, right? So like when you hover over something, when you click on something, when the mouse enters it, when the mouse leaves it, when the keyboard is pressed on that element, right? Like there are certain things that we can attach any kind of like JavaScript function to. So now what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to put in a button, and then I'm going to have this attribute called onClick, and when it clicks, this JavaScript is going to execute, right? Can anybody tell me what this is going to do? If you guys know what JavaScript is. Someone else. Someone else. Someone. I'm going to pick on someone. Not you. Okay. Matt.
Open a new window with Google.
Right, exactly, right? So in this case, actually, are you sure? Huh? Kind of? How like, give me like a 1 to 10.
8.
Like an 8, okay. Can anybody do better? Nobody? Okay, you in the back? You want to try again? Look at right here. Look right here. Oh, sorry. Let me zoom in on the guy's face. All right, can you see now? Or now? Right here. Right, exactly. Window.location, right? So window is the context, right? It's saying what's being manipulated, right? So window is your current window, and then location is the location you're at. Right, so what's being manipulated? your current Windows location is going to be manipulated to go to google.com, right? So we press enter, and oh, what happened, right? Like, yeah, like that, like exactly, right? So it's still a button and it's still an attribute, right? Like there is JavaScript there, but this requires still an event to be fired, right? And then in this case, the event is the on-click on that button element, right? So when someone clicks that button, what do you think is going to happen? Right, you go to Google, right? So you click. If the internet isn't total poo-poo. Okay, there we go. Google, yeah. All right, so now as my finale, right, you guys haven't seen scripts yet, right? So let me just show you something really simple that is like pretty amusing, but it's still like, it's just scripts, right? So I'm going to paste this script, right? Like you know, because it's a script tag. I'm going to do something to the document, right? I'm going to set the attribute to something. I'm going to append it to the body, and then something's going to happen, right? So I'm going to press enter, and then if the internet works, something should happen. Yeah, there we go, right? Yeah, awesome. Okay. Right. So like this happens, right? Because it's a script, right? So in this case, the script is, and you guys are going to see in a second, right? Like there we go. Like that's pretty cool. That's all being done through scripts. Yeah, and this goes on for like the whole song. But like, do you guys see what I mean? Like, imagine this wasn't just on like a chat box, right? Imagine if yeah, like imagine this was Facebook. Can you imagine if one of your friends set a status to be like this? Or like imagine if one of their statuses was to steal your session. Like Linda was talking about sessions, right? Like when they can like steal your cookies or like your session. If they steal your identifier, right? They can then log in as you, right? So can you see how this can be really, really dangerous on like on sites that like don't like protect against this and are like actually really big? Like this is a big thing. So yeah, that was my thing. XSS. And that's it. I'm done. Swag. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Awesome.
Alright, so yeah, thanks to Noel and Linda for giving those presentations. And so that's pretty much all that we had for you in terms of content. I do have a story though that relates to Burp Proxy. So last semester we had this mandatory thing that we had to take. It was like some sort of like
Sexual awareness course.
yeah, we call it weird school. But the thing is, like, in all fairness, this is an actual class. We do not encourage this. We were just trying to see if we were able to do this. But what we ended up doing is that, so when you saw Linda's site, like that was a very, very simple site. Not much was going on, and so it's pretty obvious to see like, oh, like these things we need to change, like, and then all of a sudden like things start working, right? But this site, this sexual awareness site, it had a whole bunch of things going on all at once. It had a slideshow, it had music, it had pictures, it had videos. All this stuff is going on. So all of those things, all of those pieces of media. I don't have the microphone. I'll just hold it. All right. So all these things are pieces of media that the site has. And so all of those things are considered requests. So your browser is making a request for the slideshow. It's making a request for the audio. All of these things. And so if you were to run that using Burp Proxy, which we did, we saw all of these things going out. And then we noticed something that was like, it was like a command almost. Like the client or the browser is making a command to the server as opposed to the server kind of giving commands to the client. And it was essentially like set position or set % done. And so we were like, that's kind of interesting. Why would our browser be telling the site to set done? And looking at it, it kind of makes sense, right? As you click next in this like PowerPoint of things that you had to mandatorily sit through and wait the entire time as it played through, it didn't make sense to us. We didn't want to do that. And in all fairness, every single one of us did end up watching all the things. So just as a disclaimer, we didn't cheat out on anything. We were just seeing if we could do this, and we did do this. And so we're like, percent done, what if we did 100% done? And so we just changed it using Burp proxy to 100% done, click submit, and before our eyes, we saw that we were done with this test that would have normally taken like 15 minutes. Even though this process took us about like 2 hours just to actually find that, because we had to click through. It's like, oh, no, that's not anything. And then finally, oh, cool, set percent done. So that was pretty cool. That was pretty cool to see. That's like a real world thing that you could apply this to. And so hopefully with tomorrow from 4:30 to 6:30 in room 219, we'll have a workshop where we kind of give you guys like a playground to go up against using Burp proxy and cross-site scripting. So bring your laptops to that, and we'll kind of give an introduction or kind of like a reiteration of what we went over here today, and we'll let you guys go at like some of the servers. Because honestly, there is a lot of bugs out there that still float around as a result of bad programming on the server side in terms of cross-site scripting, and things like vulnerabilities that are introduced using a tool like Burp proxy. And these are like real-world things that you guys, if you consider going into cybersecurity, will potentially be able to actually do as a job. Just look at websites. Like, people might pay you to try to crack their website. And if you remember back to Hack Night all those years ago and you learn about cross-site scripting, you're like, oh, I know how to do this. I just throw it in, and it's like, alert message. Turn on for what? Like, all this cool stuff. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that concludes Hack Night. If anyone has any questions, ask them now. Yes.
Back to the thing you mentioned earlier about like being able to change the pages of the course thing to say that you finished.
Mm-hmm.
Would the person owning the site, or like the people running it, would they be able to see whether it was done normally or whether it's not?
So that's actually interesting, because there's also a command that was called set time, or set time taken. So an observant hacker would say, oh, I don't want this to look like it only took a few seconds. Let me just change that to be like an hour or so. And so by doing that, it will most likely eliminate the chance that you would get caught for that. But then again, there are still things like, oh, this person's only been on the site for like a few seconds, and they can see that in like the access logs. Like, oh, this particular person accessed the website at this time, and then they exit at this time, and all of a sudden they're done. Like, there's no way that could possibly be done. But it just depends on the person running the site.
Right, exactly. If you're not checking actively for it, you're not going to find it. There's nothing that distinguishes an edited request than a real request, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing that distinguishes it.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
regards to, do you know of any literature we could use to, learn of research XSS?
Yeah. So I can send that along with the Hack Night email that goes along with this, as long as the recorded video. But there is a nice resource online called OWASP. It's like an organization that tries to defend the internet against these sort of things, but ultimately they're just one group in a sea of hackers. So unfortunately, while they do try their best, like there's obviously still problems. There's always a call for action in terms of this sort of stuff. But yeah, that's a great resource. If you really just search cross-site scripting cheat sheet, because there's a lot of things that you can do to evade filters. Like, this was a very, very basic example where there's no filters at all. But sometimes people will try to remove the tags, right? You saw that there's less thans and greater thans. Like, there's no reason that a person would be inserting less than scripts greater than, like, ever in an input. Like, there's no reason for that. So there's that sort of approach where people just remove that. Like, a server will remove that. But then again, it also introduces the problem, well, what if by removing that they actually introduce like another thing? And it's just like all these things you have to take into consideration. There are known ways to essentially eliminate cross-site scripting, like the best practices regarding them. So there, you can read up on that. Yeah, any other questions?
Any others? I think we're good? All right, we're good. See you guys tomorrow, hopefully. And there's cookies in the back.